join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we'd watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
She has been doing this now for, I don't know how many years, but she's been our one soloist, and she started out very young. Thank you. Let's give her another round of applause. I would like to welcome all of you to our annual Veterans Day program. We are excited about the program this year and what all we're going to offer. If for some reason you did not get a program, hold up your hand and Jenna will bring you a program. Typically, we try to stick to the program. In my welcome, I'd like to read a short poem called Veterans Day. On Veterans Day, we honor all who answered to a service call, soldiers young and soldiers old, fought for freedom, brave and bold. Some have lived while others have died. All of them deserve our pride. We're proud of all the soldiers who kept thinking of red, white, and blue. They fought for us and for our rights. They fought through many days and nights. And though we may not know each one of you by name, we thank all veterans just the same. I'd like all the veterans to stand at this time. Thank you for your service. There is no magic list that tells us who all is a veteran anywhere that I've found. One list that we try to keep track of is how many alum from Onega High School are veterans. And to my knowledge, we have 337 Onega High School alums that have been veterans. So let's give those particular people a round. And we have several that are currently serving. This past year, one of our alums, well, actually he graduated from Holton now I think about it, but he grew up in the Onega area, had been missing in action, and his remains were identified, and the remains brought back here to Onega for burial, and that's Elmo F. Hartwick. And we have a few programs left from his memorial service, if any of you would like one of those. At this time, I'd like Linda Rugenkamp to come forward.
Please bow your heads. This prayer is for our veterans, past, present, and their families. Dear Lord, today we honor our veterans, worthy men and women who gave their best when they were called upon to serve and protect their country. We pray that you will bless them for their unselfish service in the continual struggle to preserve our freedoms, our safety, and our country's heritage for all of us. Bless them abundantly for the hardships they faced, for the sacrifices they made, for their many different contributions to America's victories over tyranny and oppression. We respect them, we thank them, we honor them, we are proud of them. We pray that you will watch over these special people and bless them with peace and happiness. Lord God, Almighty Father, creator of mankind and author of peace, as we are ever mindful of the cost paid for the liberty we possess, we ask you to bless the members of our armed services. Give them courage, hope, and strength. May they ever experience your firm support, gentle love, and compassionate healing. Be their power and protector, leading them from darkness to light. Lord, hold our troops in your loving hands. Protect them as they protect us. Bless them and their families for the selfless acts they perform for us in our time of need. We ask this in the name of Jesus, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
Amen.
Meanwhile, the restroom's back there in the little corner, and there's one over in the Heritage, and it's handicap accessible back here. I'm sorry, I didn't know what that.
Thank you. You know, the best laid plans, you never know for sure what's going to happen. And the Onega Area Veterans Welcome, I understood one of the people from the Onega Area Veterans was going to contact this person, so I didn't. And evidently that contact didn't happen, so I would like to welcome Robert Collins, who is going to go off the top of his head for sure, which would probably mean it's short.
Oh, I don't know. I can get going. Well, I'm Robert Collins. I live here in Onega. Not originally. I'm from DeWitt, Arkansas, and thus the twang you'll probably hear in my voice. Veterans. I'm humble that I sit before you because I know what you've been through. Because we all ate sand, we all ate dirt, we lived in the mud in Vietnam. We gave it our all. We fought for all of you, the ones sitting here today. Because a lot of us, when we went, we were scared. Let me tell you, I was scared when I went over the burning Desert Storm. I just turned 21. And I didn't know what to expect. All I heard was from my grandfather, World War II, my uncle's Vietnam. And here I was following in those footsteps. So thank God for our veterans and what they've done to give us our freedom today. And let it be that they don't take it away. This is our country, this is our land, we love it, and let's always remember that. I love you guys. We're all brothers in arms and we all know it. The speaker today, I'd like to give, oh my God, I read your biography. It's freaking amazing. I've never known no one which I call a battlefield promotion. And that's the first one. I'm very proud to see you and meet you today. Thank you, veterans. I mean, from the bottom of my heart, because when we all had to bring buddies home, which a lot of us I'm sure did, I had to, unfortunate event, my loader was hit in the head by a sniper, and I had to bring him home. One of the hardest moments of my life. So we all know that having a friend, just not a buddy, not a battle buddy, but someone we loved, die for us. But hey, we're veterans. We roll it off our back and we continue mission. So, local area veterans and all veterans here, thank you so much.
Thank you, Robert. Veterans Day started out, does anyone know what it actually started out as? Armistice Day, to commemorate the end of World War I. And it grew over time to encompass all veterans of all wars and turned into the Veterans Day that we have today. At this time, I would like to introduce the veterans. I would like to have each veteran stand and turn and face the audience and tell what branch of service you were in and maybe what years you served. Don't need to tell a story, but let us know what you've done to serve. And we'll start out here with Dennis.
Dennis Stroge. I was a National Guardsman from the state of Kansas. They put me on active duty during Vietnam. They sent me to Bosnia in '96. That's all I need to say. Thank you. 20 years.
Thank you.
Lloyd Reynolds was National Guard from 62 to 68. I got out in like February. The unit I was in, they activated it in March, but I slipped out of it.
Judy Coker. I'm from Western Kansas. My name is Schwieterman. And I was in the Army Nurse Corps, and I served with the 121st Evac out of South Korea during the Vietnam era.
Steve Everett, Westmoreland. I joined the National Guard originally, got activated in '68. Now ready to go to Vietnam. So spent 6 years in the Guard.
My name is Bob Howard. Recently moved to Onega, but back as far as the military, I never seen any wrong with it. Never. You know, you accept it for ups and downs, and yeah, there's good times, there's bad times, but if you're a good soldier, you stick it out and say it and do everything you can to help everybody. Thank you.
I am Frank Scavo. I was originally from Los Angeles, California, but retired here in Kansas. I was in the United States Army from 1999 to 2017. Served in Iraq and Afghanistan. Was combat wounded in Iraq. Medically retired from the Army. I'm Dena served in the United States Marine Corps from 2007 to 2011.
Captain General at U.S. Air Force, 1975 to 2005, and then went back to work for me as a civilian for another 13 years. Retired in 2018.
I'm Karen Glasgow White, and I was one of 6 in my class actually that went into the military. I did the U.S. Navy, I'm with the U.S. Puget Sound, and we were part of Desert Storm and Desert Shield.
I'm Anna Knapp. I was in the United States Navy on the USS John F. Kennedy, first group of women to be stationed on that aircraft carrier. I was in 1997 to 2001.
I'm Eric Campbell. I joined the Army in 1986 and retired in 2016.
I served in Desert Storm, 2 tours of Iraqi Freedom, 2 tours of Afghanistan, Operation Desert Fox, 2 tours of Kosovo. I've got 4 bullet holes in me. Then I survived a suicide blast from a guy wearing a vest and 2 years in rehab. And if you know me, it's because I'm the judge of this county.
We don't want to know you.
I'm looking out all of you. I know a few.
I'm Gail Wag. I was in the U.S. Army from 1998 to 2018.
Preston Latrell, I was Army, 11 Charlie, Morgan, from 06 to 10.
Most of you have never heard me talk, so I'm from the South. Anyway, I joined the Army in 1988, retired in 2008, received a head injury, gas during Desert Storm. We received a gas cloud that was burnt from our engineers. And if you ever wonder why my hands shake so bad, that's 2 good reasons. I'm also 100% disabled. Served in Desert Storm. I was the first tank to go into Iraq, the very first tank for historical reasons. 2 weeks before the actual ground war started to clear our command bunkers and anything left that them B-2 bombers and B-1s that just big holes in the ground. So, and 2 tours in Iraqi Freedom.
Hi, I'm Carol McKinney. I joined the Women's Army Corps in 1971, left in 1973, came back in 1979 as a military police officer, and retired in 2010. So, there you go.
I'm Tim Morgan. I served in an infantry unit in the U.S. Army in 72 and 73.
John Lowe's, I was drafted into the Army in 65, 67, spent 13 months in Korea.
I'm Al Lamowski. I was in the National Guard with that guy, ornery guy over there, Steve over there. He stayed home, but me and Steve had to go to Fort Carson, Colorado. And I was too ornery out there at Fort Carson, so they sent 12 of us out of the first bunch out of the guards to Vietnam. Then I got to go to see the company commander, and he says, "Welcome to the 25th Infantry Division. You're replacing 12 dead soldiers." But I went there, never took a personal with my vehicle or myself or anything. And then I come home and I get beat up for the next 50 years.
To clarify him getting beat up, it was by farm equipment and animals, right? I think he has used up 9 lives already and probably has a couple more. At this time, I would like we are kind of focusing on the women this year that have served. So I would like all the women that are here to stand and be recognized for your service. At this time, there's one veteran, well, I guess she's still serving, so I can't call her a veteran, that we didn't introduce as we went through. And I would like for you to welcome Colonel Dena R. Goble. She is the commander of the 33 Military Police Brigade, and I want to kind of introduce her with this. Do you remember this?
I do.
If you listen real close to this seashell, it reminds me of when Dena Goble was serving in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and I was teaching at St. George Elementary. And she sent us a flag, which they kept, and the seashell. And that's kind of what started your career, isn't it, Dena? And that has a special place in my home. It may have to come to the museum eventually, but I'm not ready to do that. I could go on and on about Dena's experiences, all the places that she has served, the honors and accolades that she has received. It is posted on our Facebook, and I'd encourage you to take some time to read that. But I'm going to turn it over to Dena to share her experiences with us. Dena?
Thank you, Mrs. Burgess. Can I call you Debbie now? It's truly an honor to be here and a privilege to get to speak on behalf of all the wonderful women who have served, whether it be from our community or around the world. I can't possibly live up to everything that everyone has done, but I really appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I thank all of you for skipping out on the Kansas City Chiefs game right now, which I hear they're not doing so well, so it's probably okay. But appreciate you all being here. I owe Gail Wag a big thank you. Yeah, I believe this was her idea, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Debbie?
It is.
Yeah. But I'll talk about her a little bit more in just a bit. So I also, would the class of 1988 please stand up? Thank you all. I can't tell you how much it means to have all of you here. I haven't seen most of them since 1988. I don't get back here very often. My schedule has been a little hectic since then, for whatever reason. And I can't really tell you guys how much it means to me to have all of you here. I can't wait to get that picture later, so thank you. Of my class, as Karen mentioned, there were 6 of us that joined the military. 3 in the Navy, Karen Blansky-White, Todd Matthews, and Rick Manuel. 1 in the Marine Corps, Duke Colling, who right now is in, is it Vegas he's at? Doing a reunion with his Marine Corps buddies. And Scott Cottrell and myself in the Army. I'm in the Army Reserve, Scott was active duty. I'm the only one who is crazy enough to still be in. I think I might have been the first one to join from our class, because I joined in September of our senior year and started going to drills, which was what we called them at the time, 1 week in a month, down at the 410th Evacuation Hospital in Topeka, Kansas, and participated in that. And you know, I didn't join the Army for all the reasons that people think people join the Army for. It wasn't because I was super patriotic. It wasn't because I wanted to be a part of something bigger than myself. It was maybe a little bit because I wanted to be all that I could be, but that was because I needed money for college. I'm just being honest. In 1987, when I joined the Army, it was because I wanted to go to college. And that was my best opportunity in the way that I found to be able to pursue that goal and look for that opportunity. I've stayed in the Army because of the culture and because of the people. And I can't tell you how many of my friends are fellow service members. My closest friends, there's no question, the vast majority of them I have served with. There's something about serving, and all the veterans in here can tell you, and all the people who have lived with those veterans while they're serving can also tell you, there's something unique about what you go through together. The shared misery that you survive. All the things that happen as part of an existential threat, whether that be a drill sergeant yelling at you or something of that nature, or bullets flying. Whatever it is, when you have that threat, it erases race, religion, gender, all of those things. None of those things matter because we are all in this together. Financial disparities, right? It doesn't matter if you were the richest kid when you left your hometown or if you were the poorest kid when you left your hometown. When you're together in that environment, you're all equal. It's like getting a all-inclusive vacation, right? It's not a la carte. You don't get pieces of it. It's all-inclusive, right? You have room, you have board, you have a responsibility every minute of the day that someone's going to tell you what to do. And that doesn't sound so great. And most people look at that and think, I don't want to be a part of that. But truth be told, that's actually liberating to be told what to do every minute of the day because it eliminates the thought process that has to go into how do I accomplish these things. It's all laid out for you. Now, you get to choose your own path and choose how you want to work at that and how hard you want to try and how you excel and who you associate with and all of those things that go with that. But for the most part, it's pretty liberating to be in that situation. I know at one point when I was in Iraq, the power went out and it was 128 degrees or so where we were at. I won't say 130 because that was with the heat index. This was without heat index. And the power went out in the middle of the night and I'm laying in my bunk just sweating, right? And I'm laying in a puddle of my own sweat and it's miserable. But I'm not worried about it. I'm not thinking about, oh, is the food in the fridge and the freezer going to spoil? Who's going to fix this? I know somebody's going to fix it. The power's going to come back on and everything's going to be fine. And so there's just something about that that's very empowering. But I will say that, you know, Debbie, at one point when I was in high school, she told me that I would leave Onega and I probably wouldn't come back. And I really thought you were crazy. I thought that's not possible. I am from Onega. I went from kindergarten through high school, same folks, obviously a few here and there that came and went, but I'm not leaving Onega. I guess you were right. So with that said, if you would allow me, you read a poem earlier. I wrote a poem, and you'll have to forgive me because I wrote it this morning, so it's maybe not my best work, but if you'll allow me to read it to you and share it with you. My high school counselor said I would go away someday. She said I'd go away and away I'd stay. I thought for sure she'd lost her mind, but away myself I did one day find. I found a world my younger self could not fathom. I found a life I could not have imagined. In rural Kansas, I got my start. It was one big family I was a part. I went from kindergarten through 12th grade. Many the same lifelong friendships made. The small town culture shaped my thinking. My small town values kept me from sinking. No real plan, stay here, go there. I joined the Army my senior year. The cultural exposure has been immense. The learning curve, it is intense. Iraq, Japan, Afghanistan, Germany, Jordan, Tajikistan, Cuba, Poland, Romania, Wisconsin, New York, Pennsylvania. The places I've been, the things I've seen, the world can be cruel, the world can be mean. Everywhere I've been, the sun comes up and sets each day, and with this truth, I've found a way to see the people who live inside, where hearts and souls and dreams collide. So people often ask me, when they know where I've been and some of the things I've done, what was the best experience or the most important thing or most impactful or what did I like the most or what did I hate the most? And as I mentioned in the poem, it's about the people. And I can't really say that there is any place that I have been, in all the places around the world that I've been, that is better than another, because it's the people that are there and the people you associate with. And in most of those cases, well, all of those cases, I was with my military family. And so they were all great experiences. And I know that sounds hokey, but I'm really not kidding. I can think of bad times, periods, instances, but not the duration of my experience there. There were bad things that happened, but I was surrounded by great people. So what I'd like to do real quick is I'm going to go through the title I believe you put was Serving Through the Decades. And so I do have 37 years in, as you may have seen in the bio, joining in 87. I was enlisted for the first half of that, for 17 and a half years, and then I commissioned and am now an officer. Still serving, as Debbie said, 333rd Military Police Brigade, Long Island, New York. I have all the MP units in the Army Reserve from Maine to Maryland, West Virginia, Pennsylvania to the coast. Any Army Reserve MP unit in that area belongs to me. There's about 2,400 soldiers in that area across those 8 states. But I'm going to go through and I'm going to tell you just a few things throughout those 37 years. I'm going to do 37 years in 5 minutes or less. And you guys tell me what you would like to hear a little bit more about, if there's anything. And if there's not, that's okay. We'll keep this short and we can get back to the football game. Or the pie that's in the rear of the room, which is, I suspect, why half of you are here, right? So, in my notebook, I have my briefing for Tuesday also, so I'll try not to pull that out for you. So I've already mentioned, joined in 87, senior year of high school, was in for a little bit, started college, 1990. I was called to active duty for Desert Storm. I did not go to Desert Storm. I showed up at drill one day as an Army Reservist in college, trying to make my money so I can go to school, and they said, "You're on active duty now." I was like, excuse me? Yes, you must withdraw from all of your classes. This was November, right before Thanksgiving. You must withdraw from all of your classes, and you're now on active duty. Well, I had sustained an injury. I played rugby in college, and I had sustained a knee injury that actually kept me from going to Desert Storm. I was on active duty at Fort Riley, so I did not actually go over to Saudi Arabia with that unit. However, I do understand that the father of 3 of the soldiers that went over there is sitting in the second row here, so thank you very much. So moving on from there, I stayed in a couple more years. I joined as an admin clerk, which was not what I wanted to do. That was not a be-all-you-can-be kind of job, in my opinion. Sorry, Gail. That wasn't what I wanted to do. That wasn't for me. And so I went into what's called the Individual Ready Reserve, which means you're ready to go if they call you, but you're on standby and you don't have to show up all the time. I did that for less than a year because I missed the people, right? So I came back, went to an MP unit. They told me, "You're too short to be an MP." I said, "Thank you very much," because there was a height requirement at the time. I know you can't believe that I was too short, right? But I was. And I went ahead and stayed there. They said, "You can still do stuff with the MPs, you just can't get qualified as an MP." So I did that. And then 9 months later, they did away with the height requirement, and I've been an MP since. That was 94-ish. So let's see, I was 94-ish, went to Japan for some training, finally graduated from K-State with dual degrees in nutrition and exercise science after being there for 10 years. Thank you, Army Reserve, very much. We won't talk about that. Speaking of women in the military, though, I didn't realize that it was unique to be a woman in the military, because my grandmother, many of you knew her, Izora Petrie, she had always told me that you could be or do anything you want as long as you're not hurting anyone else. And I believed that. And so I did. Until one day I had a first sergeant who is a senior enlisted person in a unit. He's part of the command team of a company of about 150 people. He came up to me and he said, "Look, I've fired someone. I want you to be in this position, but don't think I'm going to lower my standards for you because you're a girl." I was blown away because I had never had anyone say that to me, and I had worked my tail off to prove that I was worthy of being an MP, because they originally told me I couldn't because I was too short. As luck would have it, I did the job. It went well. I was asked to go be an instructor to teach MPs how to be MPs. I did that, and he came to be one of my students because he wasn't actually qualified. How fun. Now, I was professional, but I did address him and say, hey, First Sergeant, I just want to let you know I'm not going to lower my standards for you because you're a First Sergeant. He still passed. Then 9/11 happened. And I was away being an instructor, and my soldiers called me because in January of 2002, immediately following 9/11, they got called to active duty. And they called me, and I was Sergeant G to them. And they were, G, you said if we ever got called up, you would come back. Roger that. I'll be right there. So I made some phone calls. It took a little bit, but I was transferred back into the unit, and we deployed to Guantanamo Bay, hence the shell, in 2002, and stood up that facility, received all the detainees off the battlefield that were captured, and in-processed them, and wrote the standard operating procedures for running that camp and all the things that happened down there initially. It was not part of all the controversy. Okay? That happened after I left, actually. But the shell that Debbie showed you, I did get to go diving while I was there, which was an amazing experience because above the water and on land, it was pretty miserable. There was a lot of politics, it was dirty, it was threatening, but underwater it was beautiful because it was undisturbed. And that shell came from the bottom of the ocean there that I was able to bring up while I was diving and sent back for Debbie and the team that sent us all the care packages. That's actually where I met my best friend also. I had an assigned friend. As the Army has it, we call them battle buddies. We were forced to room together. I did not want to room with her. She did not want to room with me. Yesterday, I got to be part of her promotion ceremony to 1-star general. Wow. It was amazing. So she continues to be my best friend and mentor to this day, despite us not wanting to be a part of each other's lives at the time. Let me see, what else did we do? So in 2005, I did my last enlisted tour in Germany for a few weeks training. I got to go over there, it was very cool. And then I commissioned as a second lieutenant and started all over again, which for those of you who are veterans, you know what that would have been like to take off first sergeant rank and put on a butter bar, as we call it. I went from walking into a room and being respected to walking into a room and everyone going, right? Which is fine because I don't need, that attention. But it actually worked to my advantage because I didn't tell them that I had been in the Army already for 17 and a half years and had worked my way up and knew exactly what was going on when they were doing things that they thought they could do in front of me and get away with. So that was actually kind of fun. I enjoyed that. I finally then, I got activated in 2002 when I was working on my master's program at Kansas State University. I was working on my master's in nutrition at the time, and I was 2 weeks out from taking my comprehensive exams. And I got called to active duty, so I didn't take them. I ended up being on active duty for 30 months during that time, and so because nutrition changes, and when you talk about it medically and the impacts as a dietitian and those sort of things, it's pretty dynamic. So I never ended up completing that degree. But finally in 2007, I did complete my master's degree in organizational leadership. And I took command. And then in 2008, I went to Iraq, Camp Bucca, Iraq. In Iraq, I'm thinking I'm, pretty important. I'm a lieutenant, so I'm kind of a big deal, and I'm a commander. And then I walk into a meeting, and there's Major Wag. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me, from Onega, Kansas. And it wasn't like we didn't know each other. I'd slept at her house, I'd been over there with Carol and spent time, and it was amazing to have that instant connection to home. Even though I hadn't lived in Onega in 20 years at that point, it was still so awesome to be able to be there with her, to get the Omega Herald and be able to see it, and me going, who is that? Because I've been gone for 20 years, and she's like, oh, you remember so-and-so and so-and-so. And I'm like, oh, yeah. But, she far outranked me at the time, and was quite gracious. And I really appreciated that connection while we were there. She didn't mention that she had been in Iraq, but she was, and was instrumental, not only to the success of the brigade that was there, but for me personally to have that connection. So thank you, Gail. Appreciate you. Came back from Iraq. I got to do some stuff in Germany again. Got to do some stuff in Tajikistan, which was pretty cool. That was in 2011. Pretty important time. I skipped moving to Virginia. I forgot. I moved from Kansas to Virginia in 2009. And in 2009, when I moved to Virginia, I also met my wife, who's sitting on the front row, Betsy. Thank you very much for being here. Because I can tell you, for those of you who have served, your partner, your spouse, your person, whoever that is so incredibly important to your ability to do things. It doesn't have to be a spouse, it can be whoever it is. But that person, without them, I would absolutely not be where I am today. So thank you. Can we get a round of applause for those? So then 2015, I went to Jordan, did some training over there, and then in 2016, they sent me out to the Naval Postgraduate School, where I did some studying in stability, security, and development in complex operations. Basically, we looked at illicit power structures within the environments that we work to figure out how are things actually happening here? What's really going on and who's in charge behind the scenes? Because the elected officials, the powers that be that are in front are oftentimes not the ones that are actually running the show. They are the talking heads, and there are people behind them that are running the show. And so we worked a lot on that and understanding what does that look like and how do we get after that in situations that are not to our benefit, that are put us at risk. I also got to serve then in Jordan for a year and worked with the Syrian refugee crisis, with the UN Commission for Refugees, High Commission for Refugees, UNHCR. I was a liaison between the Jordanian border guards and the UN, who had very conflicting priorities. The UN was interested in the humanitarian side and caring for the refugees who had been displaced by the war in Syria. Very important mission. The border guard was interested in the security of Jordan and making sure that the people were safe. Very important mission, right? But those two were in conflict with one another because in order to keep the border secure, you needed to not have it be porous. So you couldn't go back and forth across it, but the refugees were just across the border in Syria. And the humanitarian aid couldn't get into Syria without going across the Jordanian border. And so I got to be the liaison there and help them work through some of their differences and better understand the priorities for each other because I'm also called a civil affairs officer, which works with local governments and officials to help with the development of countries. So that was a really good mission. The other thing I got to do there was related to UN Resolution 1325, which is women's peace and security, which is very focused on the need to have women in militaries or involved with military operations because of the impact that we can have with the society and with the other fighters. Because some of them are women, some are not. But I was asked to establish a women's officer development program in Jordan for their female officers. They're one of the only Middle Eastern countries that has women in their military, but they go through an academy and then they go directly to staff positions. They don't get a lot of opportunities to be on the ground with the service member doing the fight, so they're oftentimes treated just as secretaries and people to make the coffee and do the things around the office. So I was asked by one of the male generals, Jordanian male generals, to assist with developing his female officers, and which was a very cool experience because I got to tap into the skills of a lot of the females around me to come and help me to train them in their specialty areas. So that was a very cool mission. Came back from there, did some other stuff. In 2021, I was called to active duty to support the Afghan refugee mission. I went to Fort McCoy, Wisconsin, and I was the mayor of a small Afghan community in Fort McCoy. There were 13,000 Afghan evacuees that were brought to that area in about a 72-hour period. About 45% of the population was children. They had been through significant trauma to get out of their country and leave everything that they owned and everything that they had and everyone that they knew behind. They came to us and were in our care to make sure that we helped to take care of them, to get them placed then in around the country. That was also during COVID, which is a very complicated time for communal living. They all lived in barracks together. There were 50 of them to a building, 25 per floor, with blankets hanging between them and mattresses on the floor, if you can imagine. We had 65 births, so we had everything from newborn babies to very elderly individuals in various states of health that we were able to assist with working with the Department of Homeland Security, Department of State, in order to find them places where they could live around the country. And every state in the country took in refugees in different places and helped them out, except for I think it was Wyoming maybe. There was just not the resources there to be able to match. So a very cool mission at that time. Then I went to the Army War College up in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, which was a very cool experience. I got to go up there when I joined the Army to be a student and go to college. I never thought it would be the Army War College, whose basic motto is not to make war, but to preserve peace. It's called the War College, but it's not for that purpose. It's not teaching us how to kill people. It's teaching us how to be the military liaison with civilian decision makers to help them understand what can the military do to assist in the objective of peace, and how can we do that at the lowest level. Because I don't know about any of the other veterans in the room, but I'm pretty sure I can speak for the vast majority. None of us want to go to war. That is not why you join the military. So that was quite the experience for me, and I really enjoyed that. And then I've already told you what I do now in the military. One of the last things that I will mention, and I know that it was talked about briefly already, is that, over the years, I've lost, and I mentioned the not wanting to go to war. So over the years, I've lost a lot of friends, be it to combat accidents or by their own hands. I have soldiers who have told me that they wish they could go back to the combat environment, right? But that's not because they enjoy the fighting or being under the constant threat or even the adrenaline rush that comes with being there. That's more the unity created between comrades by being under such conditions. So for my fellow veterans in the room, I very much appreciate you. And I have your 6. I know you have mine. But I just want to say thank you all. If there's anything that I mentioned, I kind of hit on a lot of stuff. If there's anything that you want to hear about, I'm happy to talk about it, but I don't want to keep you here until midnight. So. just 2,300. Yes, ma'am.
Since you were in so many different places, how did you handle the language barriers?
So fortunately we have, you know what's really interesting, and I'll get exactly to your question in a second. What's really interesting, in my current unit, in my headquarters, of 100 people, because I happen to be in Long Island, New York, there are 17 different languages that are could be spoken by the individuals in my organization right now, in my 100 people that are in my headquarters. But the language barriers, you'd be surprised how many people know English. We are very spoiled as a nation that we don't necessarily require people to learn a second language. but most other nations do. When I was in Guantanamo Bay, for example, we had, speaking of women in the military, we had a detainee who was particularly disruptive, particularly violent. There was a reason why he had been captured and brought there. And I showed up because he wanted to speak to the NCO that was in charge, the non-commissioned officer that was in charge. So I showed up. And he's like, no, I want to speak to you because I'm a woman, right? So he said, I want to speak to the officer in charge. Speaking better English than I do, probably. So the officer in charge that night happened to be my best friend that just promoted yesterday. And so she came down. And so she showed up. And he says, no, I don't want to speak to you. So we requested a female Pashtun interpreter, just because. If it was really that important, he would talk to us. But directly to your question, we have linguists in the military. There are individuals that are trained specifically for that, to speak the language. We oftentimes hire local national people who are who are dual language, who can speak the language. And we have other service members who, just by their own practice and training, they teach themselves enough to get by. That said, takes me to another interesting point of, are you all familiar with the Hello Girls? Does anyone know what I'm talking about when I say the Hello Girls? So in World War I, do you know? You know. Okay, in World War I, women were involved in the military as operators, telephone operators. And that's part of what we today would call the Signal Corps, which is incredibly important for communication on the battlefield, for people to be able to talk and the people in command to have what we call mission command, to be able to make sure that the subordinates know what our intent is and what we need them to do, and for them to communicate back to us what's going on, because we can't be everywhere. So they are our eyes and ears. And the Hello Girls deployed in World War I because they were dual language, French and English speakers, and could assist with that communication. They were skilled at telephone operation, which was plugging in and connecting the lines at the time, and the language. So, long answer to a very short question, but that's part of it. Going once, going twice, Debbie? Yes.
You're going to airborne school. That would be awesome.
So I tried. In the Army Reserve, because of the shortage of funds, I was not allowed to go, and now I'm really old. And I've had 4 knee surgeries, so I'm going to pass on airborne. I have jumped out of a plane, but it was attached to someone else. So. Yeah, it's very good. Debbie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
A little bit later, we'll have refreshments, and Dena will be here, and you can mingle with her and visit a little bit more about her experiences with the military. At this time, I'd like Jolene, Teske, Cervantes come forward. As we started exploring our military exhibit here in the museum, we discovered women way back with World War I. Coming from Onega, that were kind of pioneers in bringing women into the military. And Jolene has done a lot of work on discovering the history of these 2 ladies.
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. Yes, my name is Jolene Teske Cervantes, and I graduated from Onega High in 1967. I spent 18 years of my life living about 9 miles south of here on Red Hen Road, where Michelle Rager family, Reva's granddaughter, lives. So that's the first 18 years of my life I lived in that beautiful location down there on Red Hen Road. And it is my privilege to talk to you today about 2 women from the Onega area. And there's 2 things as we go through this that I want you to kind of remember, and I'm going to highlight. My presentation will be brief. It is about 11 slides. I see the pie too, so I want to keep this brief. There are 2 2 extensive notebooks that are kept here at the Historical Society, one on each of these women. And so they're here, they always remain here. They have a lot of details about their life and their service. As far as my presentation, there is a summary in those notebooks. There's a few copies here, and you can come and get these. If more people want them, we can see that they are made. So the 2 women are Essie May DeGraw Kuntz and Grace Viram Needham Allen. And both of these women are from the Onega area, and both were in the U.S. Army Nurses Corps. So they are, can everybody hear me? They are veterans, and they may be the earliest women from this area to be in the military. I'm not sure of that, but I think there's a good chance that is true. The other thing I want you to remember is that they were at the very beginning of the Army Nurses Corps. And we have one member here, Judy, and Judy kind of led me to Grace, but we do have, they were at the very beginning, because in World War I, and you'll see a slide on that, when it started, there were not many women in the Army Nurses Corps. So we're ready for the second slide. This is Essie here. And the Kuntz family has a long history in Onega. And we really could spend a whole day or a whole session on the Kuntz family. She was born a DeGraw and probably grew up, probably not far from where I grew up, more in the Lechley, Bellevue area. You can see here when she was born, 1992 in Washington State, and she died in Ashland, Oregon. She's buried in the Onega Cemetery with the rest of the Kuntz family, which is up at the very kind of over by the directory to the cemetery. She is buried there. Her parents were Warren DeGraw and Ellie Guffey DeGraw. And she was married to Dr. Kuntz. And Dr. Kuntz was also in World War I, and his father was a doctor here and was in the Civil War as a doctor. And she was married in 1935, and for both of these women, they had no children. And there's, like I said, lots of information on the Kuntz, so we can go to the next slide.
I didn't hit my enter. There we go.
This is a picture of Grace. She was born in this area, Lincoln Township. She died in Marin County, California, which is in the San Francisco area. And she's buried in Oakland, California. Her parents are Grace Needham and Bertha Meyer Needham. They're buried in the Onega Cemetery, as are Essie's parents. They're also buried there. She was not married very long by my research, and she was divorced. The next one. This is pretty light, but it's from the Onega Herald. It says there that they both graduated from Kansas City as nurses in 1916. They were probably, by my count, they were older, probably 23, 24, 22-ish. I have looked and looked to see where they graduated from high school. I cannot find that they graduated from Onega High. I really have looked in Westmoreland, still on the search. So if anybody has any information about where they graduated from high school, that would be great. I'm sure they were, maybe someone said maybe Havensville, I'm not sure. Next slide. This is a little bit about the Army Nurses Corps and their service in it. Gracie enlisted in May of 1918. and really Grace the same time. Realized that World War I started in 1917, and the entry to the United States and really the interest of the base hospital started later in 2018. Both of them had graduated from Kansas City as nurses, and the KU hospital started a base hospital in France. And that's probably how they got into that service through the base hospital 28, which operated out of the University of Kansas Medical School. And you see here, I have a quote that there were 100 nurses that received orders to be prepared to send to France for the base hospital. And also the Red Cross had lots of nurses that served in World War I, and we do have one from this area, Maud Gertler, who was an American Red Cross nurse and was affiliated with Gertler Hardware Store, if you remember that, but she was in the Red Cross. Next slide. So both Essie and Grace went to France, Limoges, France. There are passenger lists. The ones for Essie are kind of confusing, but there is one, and this one is quoted, that there were 100 Army Nurse Corps nurses on this and 6 civilian doctors from KU. And I found Grace, number 21, I found Essie, number 21, Grace, number 63. And it has Essie from Bellevue, Kansas, and Grace from Onega, Kansas. So this is where they were in France, Limoges. That is where the base hospital number 28 was located. As I said, the Army Nurses Corps was very little. When it was established in 1901, at the beginning of World War I, there were 403 active duty and 107 reserve nurses. 6 months after they entered, there were 1,000 nurses in 9 base hospitals. At the end of the war, there were 21,480, and over 10,000 of them served overseas. You can see the increase there. This is really the birth of the Army Nurses Corps. I think there's around 10,000 that serve in it now. This is just a couple pictures. This would be a similar picture to what base hospital number 28 looked like. And this is a little characterization or drawing of Essie there. This is from the Kansas City Star. All of the records from base hospital 28 are at the World War I Museum in Kansas City. They do have a small display on base hospital 28, but all of those records have been moved to the World War I. The next one. A little bit about base hospital 28. It functioned from July 1918 to January 1919. Realize the involvement of the U.S. in World War I was not a long time. Armistice is signed in November of 2018. So really, their service in the time at the base hospital was not a long time. Both Essie and Grace were probably home within a year. There's a little bit about the flu that put a strain on the hospital. And then when the hospital's winding down, they send a lot of the hospital staff to Paris, somewhat to the Mediterranean, other parts of France, before they came home. And from the Onega Herald, Grace arrived home June the 12th, 1919. Not sure when Grace got here. So So that's our World War I service. Now just a little bit about them, what happened to them after the war. There is census data. It goes to 1950, and that's what I kind of looked at. Essie lived in Kansas City. She went to California. She was 2 years in Panama, worked in a government hospital there. She came back to Omega, worked at the Gland Hospital. That's when she got married in 1935. Then she moves to Oregon in 1940. Her husband died in 1943, and she worked as an RN in 1950. Her father had moved in with her and lived with her until he died, and then he came back to Onega and was buried. And this is the last one. This is on Grace. She lived in Lincoln County in the 1920s with her parents in Wyandotte County. In 1930, she's listed as Grace Allen, divorced, living in San Francisco, sales lady in real estate. Later on, she's shown in Oakland, California, working as a hospital supervising, and many of her family members had moved to California. Her mother had moved with her. I find a lot of articles. She was very active in civic and veteran organizations in California, and she died in 1981, excuse me, at age 90. So whether Grace and Essie saw each other, they lived pretty close together in their later years, I do not know. But I think we really owe these two ladies a really special thank you for their service and really honoring and being from this Onega area. So thank you very much. Yeah. This book is a recent book called The Women, and it's about the Army. It's a fiction book, but it really reads all, it's a historical fiction. It is really a heartwarming, sad, it's just really kind of a book that you read that really stays with you and it really causes you to think. It's about a woman who served in the Army Nurses Corps in Vietnam. And we're going to be raffling this book off. Yeah, okay. You want me to? Okay. Let me mix this up here. Okay.
If you haven't read this book, I highly recommend that you get it and read it. Check it out from the local library.
Lloyd Ringel.
There we go.
It is an extremely heartwarming book, and it's sad. Let's give Jolene a round of applause. Her ability to dig out information on people is just astounding, what she can find. And she has done most of our military research here for us in the museum. And I want to thank you publicly for all that work. And she puts it together in such a nice notebook that all we have to do is put it on the shelf. We don't have to do anything else with it. At this time, I would like to read the list of women from our area that, if I can find it, have served in the military. Here we go. I list them alphabetically. I thought I would last night maybe put them by era, but I didn't get that done. So these are the women that I know of that have served from the Onega area or came to live in Onega. I have to say one thing for Dena. Yes, I did tell you that she probably wouldn't come back to Onega. I have changed my tune since then, and I tell, of course I'm no longer in education, but as I left education, I told kids, you know, leave Onega, find out what else is out there, And then if you come back to Onega, you know why you're coming back. But if you never leave, you won't know that. So now I do tell them to come back, and if Dena decided to move back here, we'd rejoice with that, with her and her wife and her mother again. These are the women from Onega. Jamie Basinger, Air Force. Nancy Fraser Burgess, Army Reserve. Tammy Wheeler Cathey, U.S. Air Force nurse. Beth Dice, U.S. Navy. Joanne McLean Falkenstein, Nurses Corps, 1942. Anna Mae Kroll Ford, U.S. Army nurse, class of 1938. Jennifer Giovanni has just moved back and lives west of town, U.S. Air Force. Dena Goble, U.S. Army, Army Reserves, class of 88. Maud Taylor Gertler was the Red Cross, as Jolene mentioned. Essie DeGraw Coates, Nurses Corps, World War I. Judy Coker, Vietnam, Nurses Corps. Joanne Slagle Leonard, Wave, class of 52. Betty Minch Malone, Nurses Corps, class of 41. Riva Wagner Motsky, Wave of World War II, with the Naval Air Station. Grace Needman Allen, Nurses Corps. Ellie Tessendorf-Reese, U.S. Army. Amelia Fraser Rhodes, U.S. Wave, class of 1929. Major Sandra Ernst Rogers, U.S. Air Force, nurse. Ivy Sender, U.S. Army, class of 1993. Donna Ronnebaum, U.S. Army, class of 87. Rochelle Stokely, U.S. Navy, class of 2016. Arlene Talbot, U.S. Navy, class of 34. Kay Schwartz Town, U.S. Army, I believe. Lieutenant Colonel Gail Wagg, U.S. Army, class of 87. And Karen Blasky White, U.S. Army, class of 88. Let's recognize our female. And if Ruth Caston, we would like to give each veteran a one-year membership in the Onega Historical Society. So Ruth is going to, where's that? They get both of them. If you'd stand, Ruth will pass those out. Maybe if Jenna Alps could come up and help pass those out. It's simply our gift to you as a veteran for having served. A one-year membership probably entitles you to bake cookies for something we do. But if you fill out the application that is coming with that, you'll notice we blanked out how much it costs to join. This is a freebie for you for this year. If you fill that out and return it to us, then we have a way of notifying you of the programs we're doing. And we're a fairly active Onega Historical Society. And this will allow you to get an email that maybe we're having a special presentation. For example, we will do the Tom and Joe show again sometime this spring, and this will let you know what's coming up. And then there's a place where you can mark how active you would like to become. At this time, last year, we had a special veteran with us that we don't have this year. And he was the one that pretty much took care of our military area for us. And we're trying to train Dennis to do that now, but at this time, let's just pause a moment and remember Dale Colderman. Thank you. We are looking for some veterans to kind of replace Dale and help us with the things that he did around here. He did many, many things, not just the military area, but he did take care of that. And he was our tour guide when we were showing groups around of the military. So perhaps there's someone out there that you feel like this would be a neat thing that you'd like to do. If you'll notice the military things that we have over here, theoretically, we were going to have that all in place over here for you today as the permanent military exhibit. And then, how many of you find that the best plans in life get changed? We inherited some residue from some estate sales that we could sell in our garage sales, and we had to become a Walmart for a little while in here. But we are in the process of moving the military over here, and this area here next year will be completed, we hope, with the military. What you see already here is maybe 1/4 of what we have. It can't take up the whole building. We've got to leave part of the building for other things, but we have a nice military exhibit. If you happen to notice something we're missing and you have it, that you could add to our story, we would appreciate that. So those certificates of membership for a year are our gift of appreciation to you. And like I say, if you fill out the top part on that, then we can let you know that what's happening now. At this time, if I can have the members of the Crafting for Others please come up. They are Linda Rodenkamp, Dee Groff, and Jeannie Cottrell, and myself. Crafting for Others is a group that we get together twice a month and we make things and then we give it away. And one of the things that we make are our lap quilts, and we give those away. We also make prayer shawls and fidget mats and, I don't know, fleece blankets and whatever. If someone asks us to make something, we will try to do that. At this time, we would like to share some of these blankets. To dedicate these blankets, I'd like to read this thought for today. Dear veterans, those of us who have not served will never fully understand the sacrifices you've made, both in times of peace and of war. We will never fully understand what you were required to do or how you were able to do it. We will never fully understand the depth of your scars, but we can offer you this. We see you. We recognize your humanity. We send you love that is gentle, patient, and healing. With blessings and gratitude, we ask that you remember you are loved. Thank you. And it's in this spirit that we craft these quilts for you. The first quilt I'd like to give out, Karen Blasky White. Anna Knapp. Carol McKinney. And I didn't see Donna Ronnebaum here. Is she here by chance? Now, previously we have given Dena Goble a blanket and Gail. So that's why we didn't call those up today. Those are the women we'd like to recognize today. David Stout. Served in the U.S. Marines with tours in Iraq and Afghanistan from 2007 to 2011. Matthew Sullivan. I don't see him. Sergeant First Class Frank Schiavo. Served in the U.S. Army and he mentioned a little bit of his service previously.
We'll just leave the pen together. Thank you.
Bob Howard. Bob Howard. Served in the U.S. Army, Reserves and Guards for 18 years. Stationed in Germany, 1963 to 67. Eric Campbell. Eric served in the U.S. Army 1986 to 2016, and he had mentioned some of his experiences with the military. Steve Everett. Steve served with the Army National Guard during the Vietnam era, and I think Alan alluded to that, didn't he? We have several people that have not, weren't able to attend tonight that would eventually get lap quilts. Do we have another veteran out there today that has not received one of our lap quilts? Speak now. Otherwise, we will keep the last three and we'll award them when these other people are able to attend it. Thank you very much for your service. At this time, Rob Reeves, would you like to say anything about the flagpole?
I think you can hear me from back here. Rob Reeves has nothing to do with the purchase of the flagpole. That was Ann Reeves. I'm just a porter boy. I will say that it is dedicated to the memory of her great-grandfather and my great-great-grandfather, Henry Godlove, who was a member of the 11th Kansas. And very briefly, Jolene, to echo some of the things that you said, Henry's picture's here on the table. As far as Essie Kines, her Koontz, her father-in-law, who she took care of, was commissioned as a surgeon's assistant in the 11th Kansas. She worked at the Ginn Hospital. James Ginn was also a member of the 11th Kansas, and he donated the money for the Ginn Hospital in Wamego. And as an early woman who technically did not serve in the military, Henry Hoover, who is pictured in the GAR picture here, was married to Melissa Etchison. Melissa Etchison went along and was a camp laundress for members of the 11th Kansas during the Civil War.
We certainly appreciate the dedication of that flagpole for our new facility here, the Heritage Center. If you're a member of the Onega Historical Society, would you please stand up? These people, we're wearing ourselves out with how busy we are and everything that we're trying to do, but I'd like for you to give them a round of applause. They are really, really hard workers. This facility here, a lot of it has been done by volunteer labor. If it hadn't been done that way, we wouldn't be where we're at today with it. At this time, I'd like the area veterans to come forward to retire the colors from the Heritage Center. You may go ahead and sit down. Thank you, Jonathan. Wasn't that very touching? Let's give him a round of applause. If Jenna and a couple of the other Onega historical members could bring up the door prizes, we'll give those out at this time. One of the announcements, make sure you have signed in our book. We have to send to the county commissioners the number of people that visit our museum each year and the breakdown. So hopefully you put where you are from in there too, because especially if we have out-of-state visitors, that's always a point in our favor. I have some Quilt of Valor applications up here. If any of you would like to fill one of those out, or you know someone that deserves to have a Quilt of Valor, and those are those great big ones. Full-size, queen-size quilts. If you fill that application out and get it back to me, I'll get it to the person that needs to have that for you to be considered for a Quilt of Valor. Most of you know we run these garage sales, and we have a lot of nice things come in, so we are fortunate to be able to pull some things out as door prizes. So, Dena, we'll have Dena.
I'd love to. That's fine.
Pull one out there. Robert Collins. Linda, okay.
There we go.
Adri Luttrell.
Adri.
The Patriotic Candlesticks, May Wagner.
There you go, May.
And the red sweatshirt, Linda Janneret.
Ah, she's way back there.
And the 3 statues, Preston, it's your name again. Do you mind if we draw another person? Didn't you got the sweatshirt, right? Preston.
Robert.
Oh, you know what? I'm all wrong, Preston. That happens when your hair gets a little grayer. Some of you can relate to that, I'm sure. And this is for the stars and the Judy Coker.
One more.
Oh, and one more.
I'll trade you.
Okay.
We're going to get it to you one way or another.
Yeah.
Well, this is another one for Judy Coker.
Put it on.
Can we give it to some? Okay. Mark Swisher. And he's back there. Now, I love chimes, and because we had given Dena a quilt already, I should call her Colonel Goble, but I'm going to give her and Betsy the chimes. And thank you for being our And that concludes our program here. For those of you that would like to go down to the schoolhouse, we do retire that flag for the season. And so the two veterans and I will go down there, and Jonathan Fairbanks, and we'll hear taps again. You are more than welcome to join us down there. I do want you to know that the ground is kind of uneven as you walk down through that area. Otherwise, you're welcome to stay here, and I think Ruth Caston is getting the refreshments ready. We have a nice variety of refreshments, so you're welcome to stay here and have refreshments and mingle with each other. Our museum is open. The door might be closed, but if you push on the door, I guarantee it'll come open. And you're welcome to go look at our museum also. Thank you very much for coming today, and we look forward to having you next year.